Dnfn, the city that floats on the water. Friday, May 6th. No one could be more gentle and kind than the little grey goose Dnfn. All the wild geese loved her, and the tame white goosey gander would have died for her. When Dnfn asked for anything, not even Akka could say no. As soon as Dnfn came to Lake Malar, the landscape looked familiar to her. Just beyond the lake lay the sea, with many wooded islands, and there on a little islet lived her parents and her brothers and sisters. She begged the wild geese to fly to her home before traveling farther north, that she might let her family see that she was still alive. It would be such a joy to them. Akka frankly declared that she thought Dnfn's parents and brothers and sisters had shown no great love for her when they abandoned her at Åland, but Dnfn would not admit that Akka was in the right. "What else was there to do when they saw that I could not fly?" she protested. "Surely they couldn't remain at Åland on my account." Dnfn began telling the wild geese all about her home in the archipelago, to try and induce them to make the trip. Her family lived on a rock island. Seen from a distance, there appeared to be nothing but stone there. But when one came closer, there were to be found the choicest goose tidbits in clefts and hollows, and one might search long for better nesting places than those that were hidden in the mountain crevices or among the osier bushes. But the best of all was the old fisherman who lived there. Dnfn had heard that in his youth he had been a great shot, and had always lain in the offing and hunted birds. But now, in his old age, since his wife had died and the children had gone from home, so that he was alone in the hut, he had begun to care for the birds on his island. He never fired a shot at them, nor would he permit others to do so. He walked around amongst the birds' nests, and when the mother birds were sitting, he brought them food. Now, not one was afraid of him. They all loved him. Dnfn had been in his hut many times, and he had fed her with breadcrumbs, because he was kind to the birds. They flocked to his island in such great numbers that it was becoming overcrowded. If one happened to arrive a little late in the spring, all the nesting places were occupied. That was why Dnfn's family had been obliged to leave her. Dnfn begged so hard that she finally had her way, although the wild geese felt that they were losing time and really should be going straight north. But a little trip like this to the cliff island would not delay them more than a day. So they started off one morning, after fortifying themselves with a good breakfast, and flew eastward over Lake Malar. The boy did not know for certain where they were going, but he noticed that the farther east they flew, the livelier it was on the lake, and the more built up were the shores. Heavily freighted barges and sloops, boats and fishing smacks were on their way east, and these were met and passed by many pretty white steamers. Along the shores ran country roads and railway tracks, all in the same direction. There was some place beyond in the east where all wished to go in the morning. On one of the islands the boy saw a big white castle, and to the east of it the shores were dotted with villas. At the start these lay far apart. Then they became closer and closer, and presently the whole shore was lined with them. They were of every variety, here a castle, there a cottage, then a low manor house appeared, or a mansion, with many small towers. Some stood in gardens, but most of them were in wild woods which bordered the shores. Despite their dissimilarity, they had one point of resemblance. They were not plain and somber looking, like other buildings, but were gaudily painted in striking greens and blues, reds and white, like children's playhouses. As the boy sat on the goose's back and glanced down at the curious shore mansions, Dnfn cried out with delight, "Now I know where I am! Over there lies the city that floats on the water." The boy looked ahead. At first he saw nothing but some light clouds and mists rolling forward over the water, but soon he caught sight of some tall spires, and then one and another house with many rows of windows. They appeared and disappeared, rolling hither and thither, but not a strip of the shore did he see. Everything over there appeared to be resting on the water. Near to the city he saw no more pretty playhouses along the shore, only dingy factories. Great heaps of coal and wood were stacked behind tall planks, and alongside black sooty docks lay bulky freight steamers. But over all was spread a shimmering transparent mist, which made everything appear so big and strong and wonderful that it was almost beautiful. The wild geese flew past factories and freight steamers that were nearing the cloud-enveloped spires. Suddenly all the mist sank to the water, save the thin, fleecy ones that circled above their heads, beautifully tinted in blues and pinks. The other clouds rolled over water and land. They entirely obscured the lower portion of the houses. Only the upper stories and the roofs and gables were visible. Some of the buildings appeared to be as high as the Tower of Babel. The boy no doubt knew that these were built upon hills and mountains, but these he did not see, only the houses that seemed to float among the white drifting clouds. In reality the buildings were dark and dingy, for the sun in the east was not shining on them. The boy knew he was riding above a large city, for he saw spires and house roofs rising from the clouds in every direction. Sometimes an opening was made in the circling mists, and he looked down into a running tortuous stream, but no land could he see. All this was beautiful to look upon, but he felt quite distraught, as one does when one happens upon something one cannot understand. When he had gone beyond the city, he found that the ground was no longer hidden by clouds, but the shores, streams, and islands were plainly visible. He turned to see the city better, but he could not, for now it looked quite enchanted. The mists had taken on color from the sunshine and were rolling forward in the most brilliant reds, blues, and yellows. The houses were white, as if built of light, and the windows and spires sparkled like fire. All things floated on the water before. These geese were traveling straight east. They flew over factories and workshops, then over mansions edging the shore. Steamboats and tugs swarmed on the water, but now they came from the east and were steaming westward towards the city. The wild geese flew on, but instead of the narrow malar fjords and the little islands, broader waters and larger islands spread under them. At last the land was left behind and seen no more. They flew still farther out, where they found no more large inhabited islands, only numberless little rock islands were scattered on the water. Now the fjords were not crowded by the land. The sea lay before them, vast and limitless. Here the wild geese alighted on a cliff island, and as soon as their feet touched the ground, the boy turned to Dnfn. "What city did we fly over just now?" he asked. "I don't know what human beings have named it," said Dnfn. "We gray geese call it the city that floats on the water."